Sacrifice in the Qur'an, from ritual slaughter to ethical surrender. Sacrifice as transformation, a Quranic perspective in dialogue. Taqwā over flesh, the ontology of sacrifice in the Qur'an. Slaughter is not sacrifice, recovering the Qur'an's ethical vision. The moral grammar of sacrifice in the Qur'an. Ritual, metaphor, and ethics, rethinking sacrifice in Islamic thought. A comparative study of the three forms of sacrifice articulated in the Qur'an. The sacrifice of the cow in Surah al-Baqarah, al-Adha, Bakrid, and al-Fitr, examining their symbolic meanings, ethical significance, and profound moral implications. In the Quranic moral universe, the sacrifice of Ibrahim, the rites associated with Bakrid, al-Adha, and the discipline of fasting in Ramzan are not separate or contradictory practices. They are progressive layers of a single ethical grammar of surrender. Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son stands as the most radical and unsettling metaphor of all, representing the readiness to relinquish one's deepest emotional attachment, lineage, legacy, and self-extension for the sake of truth and divine justice. Crucially, the Qur'an decisively interrupts the act before any human blood is shed, thereby making unmistakably clear that God does not desire death, violence, or literal loss of life. What is demanded is not the killing of the son, but the annihilation of possessiveness, ego, and absolute attachment. The substitution of an animal is not an endorsement of killing. It is a symbolic closure of the moral test, signaling that ethical submission has already been achieved inwardly and that violence has no intrinsic religious value. The Qur'an does not sanctify animal slaughter. It explicitly displaces it. Yet this displacement is often ignored through an uncritical literalism that reduces a profound moral metaphor to a mechanical act of killing. Although the Qur'an refers to animal sacrifice in limited ritual contexts, it unequivocally states that neither flesh nor blood reaches God. Only taqwā, a profound state of moral consciousness that demands the abandonment of material obsession, lust, deception, envy, cruelty, mockery, arrogance, ego, falsehood, and hatred. In their place, the Qur'an calls for ethical detachment from excessive material attachment, restraint over desire, a transition from trickery to moral transparency, openness of mind, the rejection of envy, active commitment to the common good, humility in place of pride, egolessness instead of self-glorification, unwavering truthfulness, and the transformation of hatred into compassion and love does. This declaration strips slaughter of intrinsic religious value and exposes it as a symbolic medium rather than a divine objective. To absolutize the act of killing while neglecting its ethical meaning is to invert the Qur'an's priorities and flatten its moral vision. In the Quranic framework, the animal stands as a metaphor for wealth, possession, and ego, elements that believers are commanded to surrender inwardly. When this symbolism is ignored, ritual risks devolving into empty performance, severed from justice, compassion, and self-restraint. The Qur'an repeatedly elevates other forms of sacrifice, giving away beloved wealth, restraining desire, enduring hardship, and standing for truth, above ritual acts. A reading that fixates on slaughter not only misunderstands Quranic theology, but also obscures its sustained critique of ritualism, devoid of ethical substance. Bakrid, when read through this Quranic lens, is therefore not a festival of bloodshed, but a ritualized metaphor of ethical detachment. The animal functions as a representational proxy for wealth, consumption, pride, and material domination. When the act of slaughter is treated as the essence rather than the symbol, the ritual collapses into contradiction, violating the Qur'an's sustained insistence on compassion, restraint, justice, and moral consciousness. Such literalism empties sacrifice of its ethical substance and converts a transformative moral exercise into a hollow performance. Reducing Bakrid to the physical killing of animals is thus not an expression of heightened piety, but a serious theological misunderstanding that stands in tension with the Qur'an's own ethical trajectory and its repeated critique of ritual divorced from righteousness. Ramzan completes and clarifies this moral arc by removing all ambiguity. Here, sacrifice is enacted without blood, without victims, and without spectacle. Fasting disciplines the body in order to liberate the conscience. Abstention from food, drink, and sexual desire constitutes a direct assault on the tyranny of appetite, impulse, and ego. Ramzan makes explicit what Bakrid symbolizes and what Ibrahim exemplifies, that the true object of sacrifice is the self's unruly desires, moral laziness, dishonesty, cruelty, and indifference to others. Hunger becomes a teacher of empathy, restraint becomes a form of worship, and self-denial becomes ethical clarity. This bloodless sacrifice aligns perfectly with the Quranic insistence that Taqwā, not flesh, is the true offering. Taken together, these three forms of sacrifice articulate a unified and uncompromising moral vision. Ibrahim teaches the surrender of ultimate attachment, Bakrid symbolizes the relinquishment of material domination, and Ramzan institutionalizes the daily discipline of self-restraint and ethical vigilance. Any interpretation that isolates animal slaughter from this moral continuum, or worse, elevates it as an end in itself, fractures the Quran's ethical coherence and risks transforming religion into ritual without conscience. In Quranic terms, true sacrifice is the courage to destroy injustice within oneself, to starve the ego, to discipline desire, and to replace domination with compassion. Anything less is not obedience to God, but a tragic reduction of divine ethics to mechanical action, devoid of meaning, morality, and the transformative spirit at the heart of the Quran.